You ever wonder how to get that last little sparkle and highlight snap out of your darkroom prints? The last little icing on the cake? Cake. Focus, Matthew. We're gonna go over one of my favorite techniques that printers have used for years and years to create breathtaking darkroom prints. The technique is called localized bleaching, aka liquid light. I'm also gonna show you a very subtle way of doing this so that if you do take the technique too far, you can even reverse it. So just a quick breakdown of what this actually is and what's happening. What we're doing is we're applying a solution of bleach, in this case potassium ferrocyanide bleach, to an area of the print to locally brighten and increase the contrast in that area of the print. Now we can do this with a fine detailed brush, a broader brush, Q-tips, and even cotton balls if you want to make more broader applications and adjustments. This is so extremely beneficial, especially when you want to lighten an area, but it's a really fine area and you find that you can't really dodge it during the actual printing stage. This gives you the option to go in after and make adjustments to those fine detail areas. So how this works. So potassium ferrocyanide is what's known as a subtractive reducer, meaning that it affects all different densities of the print the same amount. Now this can be quite misleading since the highlight areas in a print have much less density than the shadow areas in a print. So a small reduction in highlight density can significantly brighten the highlights and remove them altogether. Whereas that same amount of reduction will barely touch the shadows and won't really adjust them much at all, if any. And this is kind of the magic of this technique and where it lies, because what we can do is we can significantly increase the highlight densities while not affecting the midtones and shadows, thus increasing contrast very locally, very precisely in areas that we want to bring attention to or brighten in general. Now, before we go into exactly how I do this, I need you to smash that subscribe button so you don't miss future videos like this one. So what I do is I use a solution of potassium ferrocyanide and potassium bromide. From here forward, I'm going to refer to this as a fairy bleach. And this is the exact same bleach that I use to indirectly sepia tone my prints, where I bleach them away and then redevelop them in sepia toner. So some people do recommend just using potassium ferrocyanide alone. And there is something called Farmer's Reducer that is also recommended, where you actually use potassium ferrocyanide and then a mixture of fix, and you mix those two together, and that creates a bleach as well. And you can get these exact bleaching formulas with more instructions in my free ebook in the link in the description. So this is really, really important to understand and comprehend when using this technique. When you bleach an area with just potassium ferrocyanide or the fairy bleach, it is not permanent until you put it back in the fixer. So what happens with the Farmer's Reducer, that application is permanent as soon as you use it because it's already got the hypo or the fixer in it as well, mixed together. So that immediately bleaches and eliminates that rehalonized silver from the print. So the clear benefit then is that with the fairy bleach, I can actually redevelop the area if I go too far. Now, there is the chance that just the fairy bleach will create some staining. I have not really experienced this in my practice, other than if I really bleach too strong, too fast, then you'll notice some discoloration. But I've had the same thing with the Farmer's Reducer, so I don't see a ton of benefit, but you may want to play around. And if you find that you're getting a lot of tonal shifts or staining, you might want to definitely give Farmer's Reducer a try and see if that helps. And I would also try maybe a lighter application, kind of the way that I do it here. So it has definitely been my experience when bleaching prints that you want to use small, subtle changes. And that kind of goes for most things when it comes to photography, especially darkroom printing. You want to kind of gradually go into things. So what I do is I take my stock solution of fairy bleach and I take 10 to 12 drops into 25 milliliters of water. And that's where I like to start. Sometimes I'll add a few more drops and sometimes I'll add a little bit water depending on how fast things are going. But that's generally where I like to start. Now this is considered pretty dilute, but I find that it's much easier to do multiple applications and kind of gauge as you go than to have too strong of a concentration and it's just gonna run away from you altogether. That being said, if you do want much greater contrast increase, you may want to start with a stronger solution to get that. And on this note, you're gonna need to practice this. This is not something you want to take one of your best prints with and try it for the first time, because I guarantee you will mess it up. So take some scrap prints, some test prints, and just kind of get a feel for what this does. That would be my best advice for this. And you'll find that at first it's gonna seem really difficult, but with practice, it becomes very controllable and very repeatable. And it's something that, it's kind of like spotting prints. The more you do it, it just gets easier over time. Well, most things get easier over time, the more you do it. So for this print, I develop, stop, and fixed it. I gave it a good rinse, and then I placed it on the bottom side of a flat tray. And this is how I usually like to work. The next thing I did was I lightly squeegeed it off to get all the surface water off the print. This is gonna keep the bleach from just spreading everywhere that you don't necessarily want it, and it's gonna be much more controllable. Now you're also gonna want either a hose with running water or say a graduate with water so you can rinse off that area of the print to arrest the bleaching action. Now here in this print, I'm using a very fine brush to apply bleach to the small streams of water next to kind of the main waterfall. There are these offshoots and I wanted to emphasize them and bring some luster into the water there, which I couldn't really bring a tool into Dodge that easily. So this made sense. So I brush the solution on, I give it a little time, observe it, then wash it off, then lightly squeegee the print, and then I will apply another application till I feel that area is sufficiently to the level I like. And you're essentially gonna keep repeating this process until you think it looks good. I can't emphasize this enough. Just breathe and have some patience and you'll really love your results. Now in the beginning, you're inevitably going to bleach too far, and it's just what happens when you first do this. In fact, I now try to finish a little bit more on the side of caution, but I tend to like to overdo things. So I guess it depends on how you see this and do things, but you'll kind of gauge as you go. But I like to kind of stop before I think I need to stop. Another suggestion that will definitely help quite a bit is to have an unbleached or another print exactly like it right next to it so you can see what's going on from one to the next. Because sometimes these are very subtle changes and it's very similar to toning. Unless you see another print, you don't really see what's happening, and that can really make it easy to go too far because you're like, is it a change? Is it not? So if you have a reference print, that will definitely help you. Now, if you do take the bleaching too far, don't fret, don't panic. As long as you had washed out the fix from the emulsion, you can redevelop these areas. What you're gonna wanna do is rinse the print, squeegee it again, and as long as there wasn't fixer in that emulsion, just dip a clean brush into your developer and paint developer back over that area, and it will nearly fully redevelop. Now, if you do find that you're getting a lot of staining or tonal shift in your print, to save it, what you can do is fully bleach it in a strong fairy bleach. Then you can redevelop it in, say, a warm tone developer. You could redevelop it in a sepia toner, or you could develop it in a combination of sepia with a little bit of developer in it. That's gonna kind of even out everything and take that stain away. At least it should. And it's your best chance at salvaging that print. And you may find you like those tones even better. Okay, back to this print. Now that I have the smaller streams taken care of, I will focus on a more broad area and use a bigger brush and even cotton balls and Q-tips to go in and kind of do a broader area bleaching. Once that looks good, I will simply refix the print, and that will make my work permanent. This process can be nothing short of magic for your prints. And I love the fact that when I'm doing this, it really makes me feel hands-on, like I'm an artist creating something. Maybe it's just the brushes, but it definitely has that tactile, creating something feel to it. I feel the exact same way when I'm sepia toning my prints. It's very hands-on, and you can check out this video right here if that interests you.